Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to News Nation. This is where right and left come to try to be reasonable. So, now the stabbing murder in North Carolina of an innocent Ukrainian refugee by a deranged man with a long rap sheet, the story is now everywhere, on social media at least. So let's deal with the question that no one who's up in arms seems to want to even address, let alone answer. What are you going to do about it, other than bitch and blame? Because you're right. This type of crime and others demand attention and coverage and solutions. Now, part of the problem is what? This situation is perceived to be weaponized by the right and the right fringe, so many others are responding by minimizing it. For example, the New York Times chose to focus more on whether Trump wrote a birthday card to Epstein than discuss this. And now look, I think they should release everything they can about Epstein. I've said it a million times, but this is a different order of importance. Why? Because people die here, and it happens all the time in so many different places, and we never do anything. And I agree, the story and the situation warrant coverage. NewsNation has been on it. But I see the response by the right and the lack of response on the left as proof of our real problem. All that matters is outrage and advantage. It's all about who and what is wrong in our politics, in our government, in our society. Nothing reasonable about what would make it right. Now, why is that? I believe it's because the truth is, in our current dystopian state of play, outrage over a problem works better than fixing it. Perfect example was Fox News' Greg Gutfeld. Watch this.
He says, but it's okay to question it as long as you're Brian Stelter, a fat white guy who should be fired again at CNN. He is one of the reasons why these crimes happen, because anytime you dare question crime, it's jerks, scumbags like him that call you a racist. When a thug targets a woman, that is not insane. He knows she's weaker. Or other people saying, you know what? We really need to be concerned about our services to the mentally ill, which may or may not be true, but he's not mentally ill. He needs to be executed.
Look, it sounds tough, but it's hollow and frankly stupid. I get it. He's had it with mental illness as an excuse. I believe it's absolutely the wrong take. We need to deal with it because as far as this crime goes, refusing to deal with the real problem, the real motivation, being sick of hearing about it, that's what got us here. And I get Gutfeld is an entertainer and he's right. He has a right to his opinion. He's not a leader. But the script is the same at the top. Watch.
For far too long, Americans have been forced to put up with Democrat-run cities. They control radical left judges, politicians, and activists, and they've adopted a policy of catch and release for thugs and killers. In Charlotte, North Carolina, we saw the results of these policies. We cannot allow a depraved criminal element of violent repeat offenders to continue spreading destruction and death throughout our country. We have to respond with force and strength. We have to be vicious just like they are.
They're not vicious. People like this are sick and vicious, and that's the key part. Mr. President, you can do better than that. Leave that to the pundits. Leave that to the pod bros. You have wisely focused on crime. It is a unifying issue in this country. The majority worry about it. But you can't send the National Guard to fix this. And it's not just about tough talk. In fact, tough talk became the problem. I believe you can't legally send the National Guard where you are already, but you can do things to make this better, and being vicious is not one of them. I would say that it is vicious, by the literal sense of the word, to have created the vacuum in our society of institutions and resources and rules that make this possible. And before you say, oh, hold on, some on the right are prescribing fixes, lock them all up in prison or execute, kill guys like this, be vicious, strength with strength. They're non-starters. I know the DOJ is now charging this guy with killing someone on a mass transportation system. And they say if convicted, he could face the death penalty. He's not going to get the death penalty. Why? Well, not just because the death penalty doesn't work as a crime reduction mechanism, do your research, but If he's as deranged as reported, he won't even be competent to even stand trial. Remember, this guy was arrested for calling 911 and saying there's a substance that is controlling him. It's posturing that we can punish our way out of this. We can't. The desperate and homeless, the unmedicated and untreated, all those who refuse care or are uncared for and sometimes violent, it's on us for being all about feelings and not fixes. In fact, here is what no one is saying. You want to know the truth? We broke the system that kept this from happening, and we broke it on purpose. Do the homework. I'll do it for you. I did it for you. Since the 1960s, we have been doing less and less to deal with those who can't control themselves. Shifting responsibility to states, closing large mental institutions that were underperforming instead of improving them, cutting funding, not forcing or enforcing insurers to cover what is needed. And you know who did the most to create the least care for the mentally ill? The same party now demanding action. President Reagan made moves to shut facilities and force patients out by cutting federal spending in legendary ways, reducing mental health to a memory. Hundreds of millions of dollars in the 80s. So more mentally ill people ended up on the streets and in communities and committing crimes. So now they all go to prison when they're caught or are left on the streets where no one gets better. And the best this administration can do is threaten to punish and pretend to be tough about what happened in North Carolina. And here it is.
I can't pull money today from their transit system. I actually have to do an investigation. That's what the law requires. We start that investigation tomorrow, and I guarantee all your viewers that if I find what I think I'm going to find, they are not going to have your federal tax dollars going to their public transportation system. Zero, none, nada.
It's not about denying resources. It's about deploying resources. You know, don't let them play you for a sucker. I'm going to punish you for what you did. And then what happens? Think it through. No, there's no need to think it through. That's outrage. Feels good in the moment. Feels like something. It's nothing. If you care, fix it. Rebuild the rules. Rebuild the resources to house and treat and secure the mentally ill who need it. This goes to this stabbing and a lot of our mass shootings. You know, the president conflated. He said catch and release. That's an immigration policy. He used it here. Why? Because it's all the same cell. And I don't think it's wrong to sell fighting crime and our collective security, but you got to do something about it, not just blame it on people. We all know it exists. Do what is hard, not just what is easy. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.